Hello, everybody. My name's James. Welcome to Planet FPL, the world where everything revolves around Fantasy Premier League. And it feels like Suja's been away for a very, very long time. But he will be most impressed to know that as a guest this week, I've got on the king of YouTube, Andy Mears, otherwise known as Let's Talk FPL. How are you, Andy?
I'm doing good, although I was thinking before we came on, obviously thanks for having me on, but it would be great to have Suj on today after last night's result, because I bet he's well happy about that, isn't he? Have you spoken to him?
No, he sent one tweet out, didn't he? It was something like so many fucking mistakes, like how many
It was
times or
awful.
something.
It was awful.
So yeah, I mean, West Ham never get battered, in fairness. And last night they took one hell of a slacking, though Newcastle did play very well. We'll obviously talk about that and the rest of the games on this pod. We're going to be talking about the games Monday to Wednesday, the 7 fixtures. So yeah, I get to start with Tottenham. Yay, great. Before that, we're going to cover off the six teams, primarily Man City and Arsenal, have not played over this period, because I think there's plenty to talk about, particularly from City and Arsenal. But firstly, Andy, for anyone who lives under a rock, who are you, mate?
I'm just an idiot that sits in front of a webcam that talks about FPL on YouTube, basically. Let's talk FPL, like you already said. So, yeah, every day, a bit like you, pretty much every day of the week, although I tend to take a bit more of a break during international breaks. You're just an absolute machine.
Thanks, mate. I've only got what 5% of your subscriber numbers or so on my channel, I believe, mate. What are you, 250k these days?
I think it's like more like 330 now.
Oh, sorry, mate.
Just over 330, I think.
That's such a staggering number. I
It
look at
is
that and
mental. I
think
don't get it.
I've had like a great week in FPL, and most people will go, James, you're ranked, I think about 303k. Most people will go, oh, that's not great. All right, fine. You've got more subscribers than my FPL rank.
Yeah, just about. I don't get it either. In fact, I was away this weekend for a family thing, and we were sat around the table, like family that I don't really see that often, like cousins, uncles, and stuff like that. And my mum was trying to explain to someone what I do, and she just said, "It's all just a load of rubbish." And I was like, "Yeah, pretty much. That
My
that
wife
explains
says
it
that
pretty
as well.
well."
She's like, I don't really know what he does, but he works hard. Yeah, that's about
Talks
it.
about football, and that's it. I think.
Oh, talk to the devil. Just a bit of an update for people as well who may have listened to Monday's podcast. No, my wife does not know yet how many points Callum Wilson got sitting on her bench this week. But it's our anniversary today, so I don't suppose there'll be another anniversary coming up. So you got more YouTube subscribers than Twitter followers. You definitely got 250k on there. That's where I've got
Yeah,
that
yeah,
number
yeah.
from, isn't it?
That's
Madness.
correct. Yeah.
How many vids do you do a week, Andy?
Obviously, it depends on what. Let's just say it's a normal week, so there's a Saturday to Saturday deadline. Basically, one a day, so including live stream. So live stream on the deadline, live stream to react to the weekend, videos all throughout the week, one a day, and then unless there's like breaking news, like if a double game week suddenly gets announced, then it's a bit different. But yeah, usually seven a week, one a day.
Nice. So even at the weekends, yeah?
Yeah, but like it's, I don't want to make it out like I'm working all weekend. It's like, deadline stream being like 9 to 11, half 9 to 11 in the morning. And then that's it until probably 8 o'clock Sunday evening. And then we'll probably do about an hour of that as well. So yeah, every day.
And your deadline stream this Saturday just gone was particularly eventful for some news you
Yeah.
got a few minutes before deadline. I know you listened to the podcast Harry Daniels did with myself on Tuesday about content creation and team leaks, and we obviously mentioned what happened on your stream. It'd be great just to follow up from that and get your opinion. What went through your mind when you got the source message that said Bukayo Saka's not starting for Arsenal?
Yeah, so if I'm, and people won't want to hear this, but if I'm honest, I actually got it a little bit before I actually gave it out. And I was kind of like, he wouldn't give me. I was fairly sure it was legit. I didn't think he was lying to me. I obviously knew if I was going to say it, it had to be somewhat legit. I just thought it's Saka. This is so much bigger than whether Haaland's in the squad against Liverpool, because we kind of knew at that point he wasn't, or he probably wasn't going to be involved,
Yeah.
and he probably wasn't going to start. I was like, this is huge for so many reasons. One, Saka never is on the bench, and it wasn't even that he was out injured. It's just that he wasn't starting, which meant that he probably was on the bench. So I was like, that never happened. So people won't believe it. It's also April Fools. And
Mm.
also, Saka has been, at least in my eyes, the biggest topic of conversation the whole week, right? Do we get rid of him for Fernandes? Do you sell Odegaard instead? Does it block you from getting Haaland? All that stuff I know I felt like I just non-stop talk about it for a week or two in the international break. So Yeah, and I thought once I say this, the other issue for me was it wasn't the early kickoff. That just makes it worse because then it's 3 hours until you get the team sheet. You're always going to have people that don't believe you. And the reason I didn't tweet it this time is because as soon as I tweet something, it gets picked up by all the non-FPL accounts as well, all the Arsenal accounts. And so all they do is tag you. And so if it is wrong, you're the one that gets all the shit, right? And they get nothing. So yeah, that was all going through my head. But I knew I had to say it was too big to ignore. Do you know what I mean? If I'd found out after the deadline, but before 2 o'clock, I might have just kept it to myself because it didn't affect FPL at that point.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just knew there was going to be so many. Is it April Fools and all that kind of stuff? Basically,
never underestimate this information. Later on, could be useful for Sky managers. By the way,
yeah,
deadline's a little bit later on.
True. That is true.
But it must have been a tough gig for you, especially that one, because I mean, exactly what you'd said on your stream was like, if you've got to make your own decisions, really importantly. But like, if you don't share it, you feel like shit. If it's right, you're like, oh, I've hidden it away. But also, you questioning yourself. This could be wrong. It didn't make logical sense, did it?
I never believed that it was incorrect because, to be honest, that guy has been great. So I never believed it wasn't correct. It's more just that what people don't understand or never believe is stuff can change.
Yeah.
Especially when you're getting it that early, right? I've actually, on different occasions, maybe not this season before, I remember getting a Liverpool team lineup like the day before once. And there wasn't a deadline, so I didn't need to mention it that early. It wasn't like a big week for Liverpool or anything like that. And I didn't mention it till the next day. But the whatever information I got was correct, but it can change. That actually happened to me a few seasons ago. Someone I trust messaged me about Everton. This is when Baines and Coleman were playing, so a long time ago. And he messaged me, and for some reason I was going to bring in one of them. Whichever one I brought in, he said he's definitely starting. And then when the team sheet came out, he wasn't starting. And I didn't take it badly. I knew the guy, right? I knew he wasn't trolling me. And I messaged him. I said, I think you might have got that wrong. And he actually sent me a picture of the lineup showing that he was in the team. And obviously something changed in the next hour where he got taken out of the team. So that happens, but no one believes that. So that's why I'm always really wary of announcing it too early, basically.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just very, very simple, basic principle. You get the Saka news at 11, was it 11-ish deadline, wasn't it? So, I don't know, 11:15 or something like that in the morning. So it's a good 4 hours before kickoff. Now, as we later found out, Saka was unwell the day before. That's why he didn't start. But towards getting to the ground, maybe Martinelli suddenly starts feeling
that's what I was thinking,
unwell.
exactly.
And Saka's in better condition than Martinelli, for example. And then, okay, Saka, can you do an hour and do it the other way round? Yeah.
In the end, it kind of worked out pretty funny because I think the two players I think most people brought in were either Fernandes, who blanked. So if you missed the Saka news, you're probably feeling pretty good about having Saka, not Fernandes right now. And some people got Maddison in, and he blanked twice as well. So I feel like most people haven't lost or gained from it in the end, which is probably a good thing because I probably don't need to get into it again because you spoke to Harry about it so much, but I don't like the fact that not everyone can get it. But it's like I said to you, do you keep it to yourself or do you give it to whoever's around at the time? It's never going to be completely fair in FPL.
No, here. We'll close it there. Another shit week for you, I noticed. 147 -4. You'll be pretty happy with that.
I'm very happy. Yeah, I can't eat like Luke Shaw. Obviously, a bit frustrating that he gets an injury when we get a clean sheet. But ultimately, that and Fernandes were the only players that blanked all week for both games. Sorry. So yeah, everyone else returned. Big green arrow into the top 100K for the first time this season. And it has, I don't know about you, but it's felt like a slog at times for me. Like it just felt like nothing has gone right for consecutive weeks. Just like you get a couple of green arrows, then it's a couple of reds, and yeah, it's been a while since I've done well a few weeks in a row. And the game week 26 wildcard has really paid off for sure. So yeah, great week. Very happy with it.
Do you feel more pressure with your rank because of the number of subscribers you have?
A little bit, yeah. But I got to be honest, I think most of my audience is not necessarily built off me doing really well. So I think most of the people that are going to subscribe to you for a while are not people that are going to be on your case all the time if you start doing badly. But
you're always going to have idiots. The more followers you got, the more idiots. Yeah, stands to reason.
What I will say is it is much easier when you do better. It's
Yeah.
much easier because how can I listen to this guy? I'm 80k, you're 200k. Why should I listen to you? All these things, and they're people that you should just mostly ignore. But it's not always easy, but that is what you should do.
If I ever have a good FPL season, Andy, I might struggle with some of this myself, but as it never looks like it's going to happen. I mean, this week, here's a perfect example for you. I'm always one step behind. Did you buy Shaw and Bruno this week? Was that your
Yeah,
-4? Yeah.
yeah.
So I made exactly the same moves as you. I've got 12 players, the same as you. 136 -4.
Did you keep Iheanacho?
I did, yeah.
Yeah, that's so harsh, honestly.
So you've got Kane versus Iheanacho. You've got Odegaard versus Maddison, another couple of points. And you've got Estupinan to my Rico Henry. Those are the only differences in our squad at the moment. But listen, 136 -4, I'm not complaining. That's a pretty decent week as well. Jumped me up to, as I said, just behind 300k. For the record, Suj, I think, was 139 -4. So he had a pretty decent week as well till he watched his football team last night. I guess big debate in terms of transfers now, which probably leads us into a nice segue. Haaland. What we thinking, Andy? I've got obviously more money in the bank with an Iheanacho sitting there rather than a Harry Kane, and probably looks quite easy just to make that move. But it's worth saying, if I make that move, it's potentially going to block me off of Salah the following game week. What's your thoughts at the moment? Does Harry Kane have to be the sacrifice with what you've got?
No. So one of the reasons I sold, or pretty much the main reason I sold Saka instead of Odegaard, because I actually sold him way before. I actually sold him the night before. Was so that I had enough money to do Toney to Haaland. So I've got 5.3 million sat in the bank. So my move will probably be, as soon as I saw that he was training, that was pretty much locked in. That was always the plan anyway. Obviously, Toney didn't get the 10th yellow last night, so he's free to play against Newcastle, but he is just more of a risk than any other player in my team right now that's not injured anyway, like Shaw. So I think I'd find it hard not to just bring him straight back. I think the harder thing for me is captaincy, I think. That's what I'm more on the fence about. I think bringing Haaland back in, if Pep isn't negative, I just don't see any reasons to delay it, really.
That will block you off a Salah then, though, presumably, will it? Is that part of your plan as well?
It blocks me off of Salah until I sell Kane. And I think because Kane's got Bournemouth at home in 31, just looking at it now, I will probably not get Salah until 34.
Yeah.
So basically, that's the plan. One of Haaland and Salah has to come in before I free hit in 32. One has to come in afterwards. And if Haaland wasn't fit this week, the plan was to roll and then maybe get Salah next week and then Haaland afterwards. But he's fit, so I'll probably just stick to the original plan.
Yeah, I think it's the game afterwards with Haaland's almost more scary to know. It's Bayern Munich Tuesday, Leicester Saturday, Bayern Munich Wednesday. Whereas, there's a little bit of a minutes concern maybe going into this weekend. But I think the fact he's come back into training really early in the week, I think he'll start. How many minutes beyond that's probably debatable. So from captaincy, is it between 3 for you?
I think I'm kind of happy to captain Rashford again, to be honest. So it's kind of between him and Haaland. Obviously, Watkins has got Nottingham Forest at home, so he's definitely part of the conversation. Kane is always going to be part of the conversation because, nailed on, always going to play, etc. All the things we know about him. But I just think that Everton defence is there to be kind of targeted. I guess Nottingham Forest is as well, but if I can, I prefer captain midfielders. So that's why Rashford's kind of right up there for me. I've got to be honest, I suspect I'm just going to put it on Haaland because he's just caused me so much pain this season. I don't think I want to go. And I agree with you that I think he's going to start because otherwise it's 4 weeks since he last played a match?
Yeah, I think they want to get something back in him.
Yeah, that's a long time to then be thrown straight into Bayern Munich. I'm sure he's capable of doing that, but I just think the way that managers like Pep talk about rhythm and stuff like that, he's going to want minutes in him. And we've seen, I think from everything we've seen so far this season, I don't think there's been any rotation for Haaland so far for Champions League and stuff like that. It's only been injuries. So I think he
might be right. Yeah. When he came on against, was it Fulham? Sort of game week 15, but he was a doubt anyway.
Yeah. So I think he starts and he just comes off early and it'll be like the early days this season where hopefully from Pet's point of view, the job is done by 50 minutes and you get him off.
Take him off.
I think that'll be it.
Yeah, I think FPL will be removing that yellow flag. Like you, I'm probably leaning Rashford captaincy as well. I mean, just last night's another perfect example. Just a one goal and it's 10 points. Haaland one goal can't match that. And I think United are more liable to win 1-0 and Rashford score the only goal, and City only win 1-0 and Haaland score the only goal. That's how it feels. Although that might be contradictory in the sense that, I don't know, can we see City scoring more than United at the weekend?
Yeah, I'd say so. I think, the last few results for Man United have not gone well, right? It was 1-0 last night, lost to Newcastle, drew with Southampton, got smashed by Liverpool. So I think Man City, you always bet on them scoring more goals no matter what the fixture is. And Southampton could definitely be out. I guess, as much as I'm confident enough about bringing Haaland in, part of that is because Toney is such a liability anyway. I'm just not. I don't know if I'm 100% convinced about his minutes. So I guess there is some slight doubt about captaincy. So which is why I don't know if I'll make the switch. It's a shame the game is when it is, because we're not going to know if he's starting or not, because it's 5:30 on Saturday.
What, you're not going to get the info, Andy?
Unfortunately, I don't really have a Man City person. Liverpool and Arsenal tend to be the two. Be nice. So yeah, I think I suspect I'll probably switch because I'll be too afraid, basically, of what Haaland can do.
Yeah, I might keep a close eye on those, how quickly the spiral of transfers going in for him. But you're probably losing on Rashford as well, right?
Yeah, they're probably both going to be over 100 effective ownership this week for sure. So yeah, it's going to be one of those horrible FPL weeks where you're hoping for one of your big players not to score. But unfortunately, that is what FPL is like when you know what effective ownership is.
Interestingly, as obviously we've already mentioned, Harry, you came on the pod with me on Tuesday. Harry, if you're listening, I want another poll. Harry did a poll yesterday on captaincy for this weekend, and the results reflecting 24 hours later with the change in news is quite interesting. So he put up Kane, Watkins, Rashford, other as the options. This is yesterday morning. Watkins got 48% of the vote on nearly 8,000 votes. So a significant portion. Rashford 26%, Kane 19%, other 7%. Now, since then, Haaland's obviously back in training. Rashford scored and returned well last night. I want to see how much that'll change. So that's Watkins 48% over Rashford 26% this time yesterday. That ain't going to be the same now, is it?
No, I suspect as we get closer to that deadline, that Haaland will go up and up, and Watkins will definitely fall. I think that always happens. I did a similar poll recently enough. I think it was between Salah and Saka, and Salah was ahead, and then Saka hauled, and then it switched around. Yeah, so I think the same thing is probably going to happen this week. That when people see Haaland, especially when you said that yellow flag gets removed, that'll be it. Then I think that captaincy goes massive.
Yeah, it's worth saying on Watkins, we've mentioned it nearly every pod. It's only 2 games that he's blanked in so far, but it's only one double point haul in that period, which was actually ironically in a 4-2 defeat to Leicester. So that's a little off-putting. It's great returns, but it's 6, 8s and 9s, which feels quite similar to sort of Kane's returns for a lot of this season. So I think the explosiveness still remains of the other two. I can't see me captaining Watkins. Be Rashford or Haaland for me.
The only thing that I worry about with Rashford is he doesn't have penalties, whereas like Kane, Watkins, Haaland, I'm not going to captain Fernandes, but all 3 of my forwards that I'm probably going to own are all on penalties as well, and that can just swing a score so easily without really having to play well. So that's the only thing that ever worries me about going for Rashford over someone with a good fixture that has penalties. But he's been so good this season, I just don't doubt him at all. And I think, given how, again, I haven't seen the Man United game before, I've only seen the highlights because obviously it wasn't on in the UK or Ireland last night, but he was playing up front. I think given that apparently they played quite well and they got the win, I wouldn't be completely surprised if he just plays up front again against Everton. So yeah, I've got him ahead of Watkins, I think.
I think you could spin that either way. Burn Coleman for pace out wide or get in behind.
Everton Coleman's been great though.
Yeah, he has. In fact, we've said this a lot actually, and he's kept a number, like Martinelli, he's kept a number of players out actually. But I don't think it makes too much difference to Rashford. He's so talismanic at the moment. Whereas City could win 3-0 and Haaland might not return. That's unlikely. If I said to you now United were going to win 3-0, you definitely think he's returning, wouldn't you?
Yeah, for sure. Although I got to be honest, if Man City won 3-0, I'd probably think Haaland scored as well. I know what you mean. The goals are more spread out, but I just think I can't remember whose podcast it was the other day I was listening to. And they basically said, oh yeah, I can't remember who it was, but they said if Haaland was playing against Liverpool, would they still have won 4-1? And they were like, yeah, but Haaland would have got 2 or 3 of the goals probably. And I feel like that's kind of like how it is with him. So I think it's close. I don't think there's a right or a wrong. It depends how much you want to risk the minutes, I suppose. I think that is the big question. Because in a
Yeah.
normal week, if Haaland's fit and has played the last couple, we're probably not even having this conversation, I'd say.
City have had historical problems with Southampton. It's worth saying as well down the years. They lost there in the cup as well earlier this season, didn't they? I realised the manager's changed and stuff since then.
Oh, you're making me doubt it now. You're making me doubt it, Morris.
Andy, listen, play it your
I
way,
know,
mate.
I know, I know. I just think you've got to. I just think try and think of it as what's most likely, and I feel like Man City scoring 2 or 3 goals against Southampton is probably quite likely. So, yeah, I really like Haaland. It's just a minutes thing. That's all it is. That's the only doubt in my mind. I think if he plays, there's a score there. It's just whether you want to go against Rashford, and like you, that's where my armband currently is.
Okay. Are there any other City assets on radar for you? Are you on free hit 32 strategy?
Yeah, I think I saw some people kind of discussing should you switch to 34 and get rid of your Man United players, but I'm kind of committed. I don't want to knee jerk that much after one game. So yes, I'm probably going to get Edison in game week 31.
Okay.
Which is the 3rd time I've bought him this season, and it hasn't gone well the other 2 times. So I'm a little bit worried, but I'm probably going to get him in 31. The plan was for Raya, but now Frank Lampard is going to take over at Chelsea. I wonder if Kepa's spot might be up for discussion because maybe he puts Mendy in. But either way, Edison in. I don't know if I'm going to get a 3rd one though, just because of the way the transfers are kind of planned out. I just don't know if, like, for example, in 34, if I decide to get a defender, it's going to be Trent or a Man City defender. So I'm probably just going to take Trent. And a midfielder, I've just got no midfield spot if I want Salah. There's just not enough slots, basically.
Well, there is one way of doing it. It's accept the punishment with Bruno, take him back out, look at a Grealish or a Gundogan, frees up money again.
I can't do it. I cannot do it because I know why people are looking at it, right? I get it. Massive differential, can deliver. We know how good Gundogan is. We know how good Grealish has been, especially post World Cup. But you also know at some point they're getting benched. It will happen. It will happen. The same happened with Mahrez. People started talking him up. He carried on playing every single game. Then all of us up until the point where he didn't. And that's just what worries me. So I think Grealish is great, but do I think he's better than Bruno Fernandes? I don't really. As an FPL.
You were hesitant.
No, I was trying to think of the best way to say it, but I guess because Fernandes absolutely nailed penalties as well, I just don't see him being worse than Grealish. I mean,
but if I'm relying on 60-yard passes from Fernandes to create assists,
yeah.
If he's going to play where he played the last 2 games, it's a mistake, isn't it?
Yeah, and obviously Grealish has been brilliant. And to be honest, if I'm predicting the next few lineups for City, Grealish is in them. But what do you do if Grealish gets benched in game week 33 ahead of a double? I say most people will panic. Okay, what do I do with him for 34? Well, he'll play at least one game, so I'll keep him. I just don't want to get into that position. I think if Foden is ruled out for longer than he has, I think he's out for like 3 weeks, something like that.
He's going to be back around about 34, but I don't think in 100% condition. Just to add to your 33 point, obviously City play Arsenal in 33.
Yeah.
Grealish will play.
Yeah, for sure. Good point. Maybe it's not as much of a risk as it feels like in my head, but I just don't think I can go through that Man City trauma again. Just feels
as opposed to the trauma of Bruno Fernandes 2-2-2-2-1.
Yeah.
The
True.
7 with the penalty, which would be a 10.
I will say that obviously Casemiro's back from next week. So I'm hoping there's a bit of a change there. Eriksen is apparently close as well, maybe even back for game week 31. And we know that's the first choice midfield, Casemiro, Eriksen, Fernandes. So I'm just hoping from a long-term point of view, Fernandes will still work out. But obviously game week 29 was horrible. I've looked at the positioning for yesterday's game and Sabitzer was ahead of him.
Yep.
And when Fred came on for Sabitzer, he was also ahead of him. So he is a bit deeper for that kind of ball progression that we lose when Eriksen's not playing. But I just think for the long term, he's probably still a fairly solid option. But there is obviously a bit of faith there that that's what happens, right? Eriksen might not be fit straight away. He might get another injury. But I think with the fixtures Man United have got, I'm willing to risk it. I guess to boil it down to a bit of a shorter point, my plan was to have Fernandes now for the rest of the season.
Same.
Have I seen? I knew that Casemiro wasn't playing, so has enough changed for me to change the plan? I don't think so.
But did we actually think he was going to play deeper in both of these two games? He's actually started the game at Newcastle with McTominay ahead of him, and he started last night with Sabitzer ahead of him. Did we actually think that was going to happen? No. There was a lot of talk, wasn't there, during the international break? Oh, would he play deeper? And the general consensus was, don't worry about it. It'd be fine.
Yeah, I said the same. Yep.
Yeah. So I think my take is, look, Everton at home this week. I can't be removing with that fixture. I don't think. When you said, he's on pens and stuff as well. Everton give away another one on Monday night, and then the Forest game the following week. Casemiro's back. So it's two great fixtures. I don't need to worry about 32 because I'm going to be free hitting as well. Then you're one away from the double, and he might be further ahead. So, yeah, that was my big concern with getting him. Was I knew the commitment to move him on later was going to be so difficult, and therefore he probably stays. Just interestingly, a final note on City, Andy. You've got Shaw. Are you considering a City player for this? Because you mentioned obviously going Ederson. Wouldn't that be an easier fix? Maybe took an Aki at a similar price, or.
Yeah, I think we need to. I think I want to wait and see what Ten Hag says about him, because last night he basically said it's too early to know. We need to assess him tomorrow. I'm not going to talk about it, essentially. He also said that he brought him off straight away. Now, again, I haven't seen the match, but it sounded like he was holding his hamstring, and rather than let him play on, they just took him off.
Yep.
So I'm hoping it's only a short-term thing. I guess the difference between, you could make an argument that Shaw to Stones or Shaw to Diaz is a long-term move because of all the doubles, but there's no double to go into right now. So taking a -4 for it doesn't feel right. So although having to play Botman or Estupinian this week isn't ideal, I think that's probably better than taking a -4. So if I can get to game week 34 and Luke Shaw is fit, I'll probably keep hold of him. I don't think he's that good that you need to do that necessarily, but my moves are so locked in. It's just hard to find an extra transfer for him. If Pep said that Haaland wasn't fit this week, he's trained, but he's not going to play, maybe it's a different conversation, but it is an option, but probably not for my team.
I think we're sure if Ten Hag says anything like, 2 weeks, they're probably just going to stay. Because I think, can I justify the -4 when, Henry or Botman, in my case, similar, just play one of them.
Yeah.
Is it worth the hit to get another one in if Shaw's going to be back in time for 34? Probably not. But if he says, well, he's out for 6 weeks.
Yeah, different.
Absolutely. Probably just get it binned.
If this was the double as well, I'd take the hit just like I did Gabriel to Shaw. I wouldn't even question it. But yeah, we've got players on our bench now. The bench boost is gone. There's no doubles for another 4 weeks. So it's just not as much of a kind of rush for it. It's very frustrating, don't get me wrong, because part of the hit was because of these two good fixtures. But yeah, if he says 2 weeks, I just take it because a free hit 32 anyway, so it's not a problem.
What's your plan with Arsenal assets? You've got just Odegaard left. I've got nothing left. For those of us like us free hitting in 32, the fixtures look grim, but they've been the best team in the league. Where you at is, I'm going to guess selling Odegaard's probably part of this plan as well at some point, is it?
Yeah, essentially, Odegaard and Saka were always both going to be gone by game week 34. So Saka's originally I was going to get rid of Odegaard before Saka, but then I bought Chilwell in, so money was an issue. So Odegaard's going to go probably in 34 for Salah. I can't really see anything to alter that plan. I think you said it on one of the podcasts. I can't remember which one it was, but you basically said if I'm ever going to go without Arsenal players, it's for this fixture run. And that's kind of my viewpoint as well. Can they win all of those games, the next 4 or 5? Absolutely. But is the chances of them scoring less goals higher than it was for the last 5 game weeks? Absolutely. So, yeah, that is the plan. I might even bench him in game week 33 against City, to be honest. I think Odegaard's maybe a little bit easier to bench than Saka would have been.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, leaving Saka out in any fixture would feel particularly tough. But they're going to go to Anfield with about 6-3 though, Andy, right?
Well, I got to be honest. I did worry about it a bit when I watched them against Chelsea, because if Chelsea had some good attackers, they win in that 2-3-4-0 because Liverpool defend. I know they made some changes. I'm sure we'll talk about that, but it does worry me. I guess the only hope in the back of my mind is Arsenal getting closer to winning that title, and the pressure will build. And we've seen this so many times. Doesn't matter how good a team is, Man City, whatever, there will be some kind of slip where they scrape a win, it's only 1-0, or they get a draw and it's 1-1. Could that be against Liverpool? I mean, not if they play like they did against Chelsea, but that is my hope that over these, they've got to play Liverpool, what is it, Chelsea, City, the West Ham game is away as well. And again, don't get me wrong, the way they played last night, they'll probably smash them too. But there's just some hope there that the goals get a little bit less. I don't expect them not to score. They're just too good.
I mean, if you're looking over the next 5, if you're excluding 32, it's Liverpool away, West Ham away. Oh, did you see them last night? Manchester City away, Chelsea at home, Newcastle away. I mean, you've got Liverpool, City and Newcastle away in 3 of the next 5. That's what I meant about if there's a time to take them on. Yeah. And those who've held, listen, it's not like they've become bad value. They're brilliant value. That's why they were difficult to sell. But it probably means we're not going back, Andy, right? Because when it becomes interesting, we're looking at other teams for other doubles.
Exactly. I think the only time I'm going to look to get them back is 36 onwards. But like you said, there's a double in 37. So, potentially there's a Salah to De Bruyne move or something there to think about. So, yeah, it could be that you go most of the rest of the season without and possibly get one back in 37 or 38. Obviously, it's a different conversation if you're not free hitting. In that case, you absolutely keep them. You don't even have to think about it. But I got to be honest, this game week has not made me any happier about it because Liverpool, rubbish against Chelsea. West Ham, absolutely destroyed last night. Obviously, a lot of mistakes, but good teams like Newcastle, like Arsenal, they'll make you make mistakes. So the same thing could happen. So, yeah, I'm certainly not sat here not worried about it because I definitely am.
Just want to do quick fire with you on the 4 other teams who didn't play this midweek. Southampton, I take it as no interest in at the moment.
I don't think so.
Wolves?
Nope.
Palace?
Possibly on free hit. 32. They got Everton at home. So Zaha, Guaita. Although Zaha went off.
Zaha's probably going to be out. Yeah. I think it was saying probably won't make 32 anyway, at least. Probably.
Yeah, fair enough. So maybe Guaita as a defender, probably no other attackers. They do have, from what I remember, I've been so fixated on double game week teams.
Super fixtures. Yeah. Incredible run.
So possibly at some point, like those last 3 game weeks, once the double game weekers are in place, there might be some spare transfers, but in the next few weeks, probably not.
No, again, it's focusing on doubles. But I think Gator particularly, or perhaps even a defensive one, might fix if you've got a problem, perhaps if the Chelsea team suddenly changes under Lampard, where if you're without chips, for example, I think that's a particular one. Like if you're running 32 and you want a short-term replacement for Shaw for a few weeks, if he's out for 3-4 weeks, Palace might be a good one, go to and come back. Similarly, for those bench boosting 34, who might be in a position who've got Kepa and Ward and now shitting themselves, I don't think Bernd Leno of Fulham would be the worst choice. Actually, they've got a few good fixtures. Yes, it's a horrendous double in 34, but look at Raya's save points in a 3-3 at Brighton, gives you an example of what is achievable. And their fixtures, despite the fact they're possibly on the beach, are brilliant either side. But it might just add to making more saves.
Yeah. I think cheap goalkeepers are always worth a look because it's very difficult to predict when the returns are going to come, isn't it? And like you said, you can get those saves. So yeah, I don't mind that as a shout.
The other thing for me that I was looking at, Andy, and someone else must be in this situation. Obviously, you're probably likely to go Toney to Haaland this week. For me, it's probably going to be Iheanacho to Haaland. And once I've made that, and I've got Watkins, Toney, and Haaland, while Toney's not getting booked, especially maybe even if he got booked in 31 and missed 32 and 33, and then he's got the single at home to Nottingham Forest in 34, where there isn't going to be a huge number of great forwards, I think, for that particular double game week. I might end up staying with that front 3. And one of the things I was looking at last night was a Fernandes to a Pereira or a Solomon and actually commit to going back the other way and staying with a front 3. So there might be a little bit of interest in Fulham, but I think it's only to enable or to cover.
Yeah, I guess you're absolutely right about the forwards in 34. I've looked at it quite a lot because I need to do that Kane downgrade to get Salah. So I guess Vinicius, maybe if he's playing every game. Obviously, he's not as good as Mitrovic, but he might be a cheap option. The other one I think a lot of people were looking at up until last night was Isak. I can't remember who they've got in 34.
Southampton at home.
Yeah, Southampton at home. But obviously, he's been benched now. So suddenly that's Like, I thought he was playing so well that even when Wilson was playing, Isak would play off him. Hasn't happened. So
I
do
think it was just Sunday, Wednesday, Saturday, Andy.
you think? Yeah, but then I guess they got no double game week then, possibly. But for me, that's just now. I just don't know if I'd want to take that risk. And if I do, it's because they got a double game week, which is then going to be in quick succession. So we're going to have the same thing again then.
What it probably means is if the extra Brighton fixture goes into 36, which is almost definite if City beat Bayern Munich in the Champions League, whereas I think it might have been an all Trippier or Isak captain. When it comes around, there'll be enough worry now that everyone will just captain Trippier.
Yeah,
Is probably
or
the
I guess
point
a
on
Brighton player, right?
that. But if it lands in that week, Brighton's double will be Newcastle away and Arsenal away.
Interesting. Okay.
Whereas Newcastle's will be Leeds away and Brighton at home.
I hate captain and defenders.
Do you go Mitoma over Trippier in that circumstance?
I think I probably would. Right now, I would. I don't know. I think about that when we get closer to the time.
For your
It's
reference, Andy,
point,
Haaland would have Everton away and Rashford would have Wolves at home.
I'd definitely go for a double game week.
Yeah, especially with 3 game weeks to go. Sod that.
Yeah, I'm not messing around with single game week captains. Yeah, it's an interesting point. I hadn't thought about that. I think my mind was just that I would go for an attacker, and it was Isak up until last night. So yeah, Trippier or Mitoma, definitely one of those.
Yeah, point is, if Toney is held by that period for 34, I can't see where, other than maybe Nunes, if I'm confident that he plays twice, where I'd even move Toney to another forward there with a double. I don't think it's anything better at the similar value with a fixture's got two games. Right, let's talk about some of these games, Andy. Did you watch the Monday Night Football?
Yeah.
Go on, give me your neutral opinion before I tear my football team apart.
Yeah, I mean, how it went down to 10 men and you managed to draw the game, I don't know. I'm not saying Man United are the masters of controlling games, but I just don't know what happened. It was like you were losing 1-0 and there was panic, but you were winning 1-0 and the panic still set in. So yeah, I didn't really get that. I didn't think it was really a quality game of football or anything like that from either side. I think there's definitely a lack of decent what's the word? I guess just decent attackers for Everton in that final third. There was a couple of decisions, like I think Decore was through on goal, and instead of passing right to a player that was completely open, he just shot over the bar. It might not have been Decore, I can't remember exactly who it was, but decision making not great. But overall, just the kind of game where I wish I kind of hadn't watched it up until Michael Keane scored that screamer.
That makes 2 of us, mate. Actually, the first quarter of an hour started livelier than I expected. Both teams had a few chances. It had a decent vibe about it. Then it kind of got into a malaise where Everton settled down and were like, I don't really want a boxing match here with you. And we started the second half so badly. And they were on top. Then the red card happened.
Yeah.
Thoughts on the red card?
Oh, it's definitely a red card, isn't it? Like it's of course Kane goes down, he milks it, of course, but all players do that. This is football these days. Like we might not like it, but this is how it goes. And there's no arguments about the red. You can argue all you want about Kane shouldn't have been on the floor and stuff like that, but it's definitely a red card. You can't do that.
Got nothing to add other than it's interesting that people talk more about Kane than the stupidity from Decore.
Yeah, really stupid. And you might have to remind me because I sometimes watch games and I feel like I've forgotten everything that happened. But I'm not even sure what he was so worked up about. I don't think Kane... Did Kane kick out or something? I don't think he did. Did he?
Kane fouled, I forget who it was. And then the whistle had gone and Kane and Decore both did like a block tackle against each other and kind of bumped into each other. That was it.
Yeah, but it's not like... From what I remember, it's not like Kane was more aggressive or anything like that. So I didn't really get why Decore reacted like he did. It was just maybe just a split second of, like I said, just stupidity.
Moment of madness, which players have. It was definitely a red card. Yeah, he's gone down easy. Yeah, I'm bored talking about it. Then for 10 minutes against the 10 men, we played really well. I was thinking change to a back 4, but the wing backs went really high. They played like wingers. We boxed them in. Every time Everton tried to clear the ball, it was just attack versus defence, start again. We got the penalty, clear penalty, Kane scores, and instantly the game changes from nothing. Tottenham went, come on in.
Do you think, do you think that was an instruction? Do you think it's just a mentality thing? I just couldn't understand it.
It's mentality. It's ingrained in them from having Mourinho, Nuno Santo, Conte, that it's like a default setting. We're winning.
Yeah, now make sure we keep the win. But just going away from that slightly, I cannot believe what's happened to Son. Like in that game, like, obviously I know this is not a new thing this game, but it's just like every touch just feels like a bit heavy. Like it's like
Yep.
that bit of sharpness has just gone. It's just not there. And I got to be honest, I didn't think Kulusevski was much better on the other side. I think he was exactly the same. It's just like you've got Kane, this player who's been super consistent all season, and everywhere around him, it's just
Shit.
not up to that level. Yeah, even Son, it's just yeah,
So
not
I don't think Son's had a good game all season.
apart from freaking Leicester. What was it off the bench when the three
Oh yeah,
goals?
but he hasn't
Yeah,
had a good game. He started.
yeah, that's probably fair.
Honestly, nowhere near his level from last year. Unless I told you different, you'd actually think it's two different players last year
Yeah,
and this year. There's nothing to see there. Kulusevski's not been great since he came back in January, but not helped by what's around him as well. At least Kulusevski still looks like he's capable of making something happen. Exactly what you said with Son. His first touch means his second touch is a tackle. Get nervous as soon as he takes his first touch. And this is a guy who many thought should have won Player of the Year last year, right?
yeah, like and like
Unbelievable.
I know people have said in the past, he always outperforms his XG. At some point, that might not happen, but the drop off is not just that. There's way more to it, and obviously you start to think, is it Conte? Has he really had that much of effect on him? But even that, I just can't imagine the drop off will be that big. It's like I feel like something else has happened we're not aware of, and we're going to find out, after the fact, like maybe next season after, or whatever. But whatever it is, I feel like Son is just one of those players now that needs the season to end. Get the season end, have a break, and then go again. It's just whatever it is, it ain't working.
Tottenham should honestly be looking to source him around some of Europe's biggest clubs who would be prepared to steam in and take the money, because it's probably going to be last chance. If he has another season next year, like he's had this year, you haven't even got any takers at that point anymore.
Yeah, it's a good point.
He's just turned into his 30s. He's obviously heavily reliant on his pace, but it's more the technical qualities have been a problem for him. The other thing that's been a major problem for him is Kane has stayed further up more often this season, which has meant running in behind. We saw it so much in the back end of last year. Kane dropping in, Son in behind. You knew as soon as Kane got turned, Sonny would be on his bike. That situation's just not happening. It's been good for Kane, clearly. It's not been so good for Sonny.
He's actually going to turn 31 this summer.
Yeah,
so, yeah,
that's what I'm saying. If Tottenham can, offer him to, Barcelona do madness, call him up. Call them up. How much do you want to pay? See if they're interested in stuff, when they realise they can't afford Messi, because that'll break FFP, but they'll probably do it anyway, right?
Yeah. There'll be a lever.
Yeah, there'll be another lever from somewhere, no doubt. Maybe it'll come from Daniel Levy. Yeah, just bad. I mean, for as I said, from the moment we scored, full credit to Everton, never give up. They put us under a lot of pressure, but we allowed that pressure to come onto us. If for some reason you have any Tottenham defensive, you need to reconsider your life. I was tagged by someone this morning who suggested they wanted to captain Harry Kane this weekend. Have you given any thought to that, Andy, as your own?
Yeah, I think, like I said earlier, he's always going to be part of the conversation because he's been so consistent this year, and I don't think it's going to change for the next 8 weeks. But Brighton is a difficult fixture. I think I'd be more prepared to do it next week. Yeah, like if I'm going to go against Haaland, maybe it's when you've got Bournemouth at home, not Brighton at home. So probably not. I'd say he's behind Rashford for sure for me.
Quick prediction for that game, Tottenham Brighton.
I think the way you've seen things recently, I think Brighton can go and win that, even though it's away from home, because their attack is just brilliant under De Zerbi. I was actually checking yesterday; they've overtaken Liverpool for expected goals per 90 for the first time this season. So they're actually third behind Man City and Arsenal. Like how much he's improved them is ridiculous, and I'm not sure your defense can cope with it. But Kane always scores, so 2-1 to Brighton.
I got nothing to add. That's not just a pessimistic fan opinion. That's the opinion of the YouTube GOAT. Here's your segue. Let's talk about Brighton, who were 2-0 winners at Bournemouth. They weren't at their best, it's worth saying, the other night, but it's also a good sign for them that they weren't and still got the job very much done. How do you feel about, to flip the conversation then? You've got, what, McAllister and Mitoma? I think you've got the same.
March.
Oh, you got March and Mitoma. Okay. Any thoughts to benching either of them?
Yeah, so I'm gonna have to play one. And I got to be honest. Again, I haven't watched Spurs.
You should have to play both.
Well, so this is actually one of my only, outside of captaincy and bringing Haaland in. This is probably my only dilemma, which is play Odegaard or March. And I think on paper, Spurs away, Liverpool away are not great, but both those defences are not great, and both the attacks that are going up against them are brilliant. I think the way Liverpool played against Chelsea has kind of swung me towards Odegaard, because I think Arsenal will not. Arsenal will punish Liverpool if they play like that. Chelsea didn't, because Havertz just, I don't know, just not a number 9 probably. João Felix just maybe held onto the ball a little bit too long. Saka, Martinelli, Jesus, Trossard, they will punish Liverpool. So that's kind of why I'm playing Odegaard. But I think it's close. I'm not happy about benching March, to be honest.
No, I may end up benching McAllister because I end up with those 3 forwards. It's going to make it very tough for me, actually, but I'm not happy about it. I definitely would not bench Matoma going up against Pedro Porro this week. No, definitely not. Just play that. Yeah, I think if it's a choice between the two, you've got to play Matoma. Not that March can't do damage on the other side. Just he's an absolutely electric Matoma, isn't he? Is he 8 returns in 10 or so now? What a super asset.
He's just brilliant. I mean, they're making a mockery of the price from an FPL point of view. Obviously, none of us predicted this to happen. But yeah, the guy's just, the thing I like about Matoma is he's just fun to watch as well. I think sometimes you have players in your FPL team that are just in there because you have to kind of have them. But Matoma, you just enjoy watching him as well, and he is going to cause your defense all sorts of problems, I would say.
I can't wait. It's worth saying as well, Brighton tweeted not long after the game as well, said McAllister and Caicedo will both be fit for the game. They were withdrawn. There was a little bit of concern they might have injury knocks. Apparently, that's not the case. I'm interested to know, Andy, if you're going to sell Toney and keep Kane, does that push you into the idea of picking Botman over a Stupinan for your team this week?
Maybe subconsciously. I'm actually a bit torn on that, because I think attacking wise, Estupinian is better. But I think Brentford away, despite Spurs' woes, maybe is probably still a slightly better fixture. It's a shame Toney didn't get his yellow card last night for me, because I'm getting rid of him anyway, and I'd like to have had him back for game week 32 free hit, and obviously then he wouldn't be up against my Newcastle defence. But I think I'm probably going to play Botman, just because I think on paper it's a slightly easier fixture.
Okay.
But I'm not completely set on it, because I think Estupinian, that attacking potential is just there. But that's why I'm feeling right now.
Obviously, they had another youngster score, not just Evan Ferguson, but Julio Enciso, who's another teenager, another one they've unearthed from South America that no one had heard of previously. The way they do their transfer business has been spoken about a lot by us. But Ferguson remains very interesting, isn't he? I think at some point, Andy, if I obviously don't end up with the 3 up front, plan had been probably, because the bench boost has gone, come down to Sam Greenwood. But am I better off with just the 2 Brighton? Get Ferguson in.
Yeah, it's a tricky one, because he's brilliant. I know, so I live in Ireland, and obviously they've got big expectations for him. He played both the games in international breaks, got his first goal against Latvia as well. So there's a lot of love for him. He never gets to 90 minutes. I don't think he's played 90 minutes once so far for Brighton this season in the Premier League. I don't know if you can be assured that he's going to start every game either, because Welbeck's just there. And I think if you ask me who's ahead in the pecking order right now, it is Ferguson. I think everyone would agree on that. But I just have that slight worries. And I just feel like Brighton from 33 to 38, they've got 3 double game weeks. Is it worth the compromise? Like, are you gaining enough by having him in? And possibly you are, because you can't really turn your nose up at a 4.6 million forward. And if this was different circumstances where they didn't have all those doubles, we'd probably all be on 3-5-2 with Ferguson on the bench, right? But I just feel like, because Brighton is so important, if you can get that, if you've got a slot for that defender or something instead, or even maybe that third midfielder, that might be the slightly better play. But I don't think Ferguson's bad. I just always have slight concerns over his minutes. Slight.
Something like Danny Welbeck's missing the rest of the season would...
that would help
possibly help. Nothing against Danny Welbeck, other than the fact he used to play for Arsenal, would probably help the decision making. As I've only got the 2, and as much as I think they probably will beat us at the weekend, then it's Chelsea away, then blank. I think I'm leaving the decision on the 3rd one now, probably till game week 33. Actually, investing in teams in 33 looks a bit ugly. Brighton have got one of the better fixtures, right? Not in the Forest away in that game week. So it's probably then I go back and invest in the 3rd one. And if Ferguson looks clear by that point, then that might be where I decide to go. If Brighton play to their capabilities and Tottenham play to theirs, there is literally zero doubt about who will win that game at the weekend. Where Tottenham might have some joy is what we mentioned on Monday a little bit, is there is a defensive weakness for Brighton on set pieces, which they do need to address. We saw that in the Brentford game last week. Bournemouth assets, Andy, neither you or I have got involvement in, but their fixture run's not bad. And I guess a few will have the likes of Dominic Solanke or Philip Billing following this double. Is it just a hold through at the moment?
I think the only one I'd really be looking at is Solanke. So if that Kane transfer goes and I've got a bit more money than having to go to Greenwood, there's never a problem with having a playing player on the bench. And I do like Solanke. I was close to getting him in 29. I just think Bournemouth have looked very good. Like I think sometimes when teams are fighting relegation, they sometimes have a tendency to just sit back and hope you don't concede and maybe get a goal. They don't seem to be playing like that. Like against Brighton, you're right. They should have scored. They're probably a bit unlucky to go away with 0 goals, and we were probably lucky to get a Brighton clean sheet. So I actually really like Stank. I mean, he's nailed on. He's on penalties as well. He's only 5.5 million. He's the cheap, apart from Evan Ferguson, I guess. He's the cheapest playing forward that is going to start every game. And obviously Ferguson doesn't have penalties or anything like that. So I actually like him. Whether or not you need to go and buy him, that really is going to depend on your transfer plans.
It's probably
right?
about holding.
Yeah, I would definitely hold. I don't see too many forwards that are must buys right now, to be honest.
We've got 5 shit teams in the next 5: Leicester, Tottenham, West Ham, Southampton, Leeds.
Definitely goes there.
Good run of fixtures. Even Billing sit on the bench as first sub, whatever. Solanke, I think with Leicester away at the weekend, I'd find him difficult to sell.
Yeah, definitely.
If
I think
people gone now.
I mean, there'll be people out there with Solanke, Leicester away, or having to play March against Spurs away. And I know you'll probably say, well, definitely target Spurs, but I don't think it's actually that simple, especially when you got penalties in your locker. I don't think he's had one all season, but you just never know when it's going to come. So I'd actually be tempted to, if I've got him, to try and play him this week. Because I think going back a few weeks, they scored against. They obviously scored against City. They scored 2 against Arsenal, and I remember those 2 games. They weren't. It's not like they were lucky to score. They did well in both those games from an attacking sense. So, yeah, something seems to have changed the last few weeks. I'd kind of want to be playing Solanke, I think, for the most part this week. Leicester just rubbish.
Forest, think they're going to go? Obviously lost at Leeds. They got a Villa, United, Liverpool, Brighton, Brentford, the next 5 as well.
Yeah, I got to be honest. When I saw, I'm just bringing up the table now. When I saw yesterday, they had to come out and clarify that Cooper wasn't going to be sacked, but they had to improve. I mean, I got to be honest, that didn't sound great. I don't know. I don't want to sit on the fence, but the relegation battle is ridiculous. For neutrals, it's going to be one of the best we've probably ever seen, given how close the points are. Like Leicester, for example, I don't want to use the cliche. Surely they're too good to go down.
Well said, Andy. No one's going to clip that.
No one's going to click that. Yeah, sure. Like Maddison, Daka, if Iheanacho ever gets played, you feel like they're probably too good to go down. So maybe Bournemouth drop in, possibly Forest. I feel like Everton are going to be safe as well, although they could probably do with getting Calvert-Lewin fully fit.
I think Everton have capabilities. Like even when they play Newcastle at home in 33, Everton are capable of winning that 1-0.
Yeah,
I feel like
Yeah, they can get results. I mean, West Ham again. Let's get all the cliches out. Clip them. Surely they cannot go down.
I don't know. Did you watch West Ham, mate?
I did, which makes me slightly worried. But so I think Forest are definitely, probably one of the more likely to be gone. Unfortunately.
Yeah, I think Mark obviously came on the pod of us with Andy Martin during the break and probably needed 4 points from these two. With Tottenham 1, it's even worse the fact they were winning in both as well. So psychological.
And 1 was against Leeds, wasn't it? So that's another,
and Wolves on Saturday as well, right down there with them as well. So psychological blow to give up those points and essentially drop 5 points during the course of this week.
And it's horrible.
Did look like Leeds deserved to win it. Everything I've heard from the Forest guys is they didn't play well, didn't keep the ball well. Leeds looked a real threat. Interestingly, we've now got, I think, the 3rd very interesting Leeds left winger this year, following on from Somerville before the World Cup, Nonto after the World Cup, and now Sinistera, who's probably too expensive and are interested in other teams at the moment. But it's interesting, they've had 3 dynamite players at various points this season play on in that left channel position. Bamford played as well, so changed the system a little bit from the Arsenal game at the weekend. But despite Good fixtures for Leeds. We're not looking here either, are we, Andy? Would have been 4 to double and Forest at home, probably, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I honestly sometimes I hate this stage of the season because you feel like there's certain teams you just cannot look at because you're going against the crowd for no real reason, and it's a shame because they got what is it? I think it's only 2 home fixtures next 5, but it also includes Palace, Fulham, Leicester, Bournemouth. There's a potential punt there, but it's like
I don't know why you left Liverpool out of that.
yeah, I don't know
It's at
why I left
home.
Liverpool, but I think I've still got that in the back of my head that Liverpool are a good team, but yeah, defensively definitely not. Yeah, I think it's all about. I'm going to try and use a big word. I'm probably going to get it right. It's like that opportunity cost people talk about, people that are smarter than me. It's like, it's all well and good wanting to go for a Leeds midfielder, but who are you removing? Like, which slot out of Salah, double Brighton, Fernandes, Rashford? There's just no slots for them. So it's unfortunate when you've got this many doubles and blanks, especially ones that involve so many of the same teams, with the doubles in particular. It's just so hard to go off piste.
Ironically, if it wasn't for doubles and they'd been coming into Forest at home, Palace at home, Liverpool at home, Fulham away, Leicester at home, Bournemouth away, we'd, if it was game weeks 11 to 16 or something, we'd been going, I want to look at something for this little period here. It just doesn't feel like you can, everybody can do it, but it just feels like you're kind of a bit handcuffed by the doubles, aren't you? In a sense, you just don't consider these teams really on the whole.
Yeah, I think some of FPL from here to the end of the season is probably about just holding your nerve, because I know sometimes I think I get it in poker sometimes. You just get I just get bored with poker if I'm not involved or I'm not doing something, and so I'm not playing for big money or anything like that. So I'll start going in more often than I should be. And I feel like some managers get like that with FPL. They want to be making more interesting transfers, so they start thinking outside the box. And there's nothing wrong with doing that, but sometimes the obvious move is just the one to make. And the obvious move right now is just to completely ignore Leeds, unfortunately, no matter what fixtures they got and no matter how cheap their players are.
Do you think our friend Mark will keep or sell Johnson?
Oh, he'll keep him.
Do you
I'd
think?
say. He's not injured or anything, is he? Don't think he got.
No, it should be fine. Dennis might have picked up a problem. Johnson should be fine. Interestingly, though, I want to say he hasn't scored away from home since the goal at Everton in September. He's only got 1 away goal, and they've obviously got Villa away, Liverpool away, Brentford away in the next 3, and the next 5. Sorry, and the 2 home games sandwiched are United and Brighton. They're not great.
No, but I feel like for Mark specifically, I think he might be looking at it saying this might be the only opportunity he gets to have Johnson from at Forest in his team in FPL for a while. So I suspect he'll probably just keep hold of him. And everyone else should probably be looking to get rid if they still own. I would say sooner rather than later.
Yeah, Navas, if you've gone on, you might need at the moment, subject to you pairing with a Kepa or something. So I wouldn't shit yourself, but it's probably a bench going forward. Leicester, Villa, won very late on by Bertrand Traore, much forgotten player. It was, absolutely. Although Wilfred Ndidi completely summing up his regression as a footballer, who I would have rated as one of the best holding midfielders in the world 2 or 3 years ago, and struggles to get in this team now. Really regressed, unfortunately. I think primarily due to injuries. But it was a bizarre moment at the end with Ollie Watkins getting sent off, which came about from a free kick, which I think is it Rob Scott, the referee? Graham Scott, can't remember his first name. Gave a free kick and didn't know which way. Have you seen it? Where he didn't know which way he was giving the decision.
No, I haven't seen that. I saw the Watkins penalty card, then rescinded. Saw that.
So it came from a free. He blew the whistle, and he actually originally gave the free kick to Villa. Changed his mind because the linesman probably said you've got that wrong. Give it to Leicester. Free kick comes over. Watkins gets fouled, and he ends up giving a penalty, and what would have been a second yellow to Watkins and a red card, which was the clearest kind of VAR overturn you'll see all season. I have to say, Andy, you say Leicester are too good to go down. If suddenly you took Maddison out of that team, do you feel the same?
Yeah, it's a fair point as well, because he did go off with an injury, didn't he? I know a lot of people.
We think it was just cramp.
Oh, okay, fair enough. I still think they are probably they're still too good to go down, I feel like, and also the fixtures are quite good they've got left. Like the hardest fixtures on paper are obviously City away, which they got very soon. Liverpool at home in 36, but like you said, they are not like Leicester can get goals in that, right? So, if they can maybe try and keep the amount they concede down a little bit for one game, they could even get a result there. And then Newcastle away probably in 37. I feel like every other game is at least winnable on paper. I'm not saying they're all easy. I mean, I just can't see Nottingham Forest with their fixture on doing better than Leicester with their fixture on. So that's already one less team they got to worry about.
I'm inclined to agree with you, but would you possibly also agree with the statement? The one thing with Forest is you'll get commitment from them over this period. Whereas Leicester seem completely capable of shooting
Just
themselves
giving
at
up,
the
maybe,
foot,
yeah.
as per the winning goal. Yeah, it's a great finish, but look at the pass.
Yeah, I just don't think it's going to happen. I just think there is. I just think the thing with Leicester is this: even if the whole team is not good enough to go down, they've got those quality players. And if Maddison can stay fit, if maybe they put Iheanacho back in the team. I don't know what happened there. I feel like those are the kind of players that can just win them games from nothing. So I wouldn't. I mean, I'd be worried if I was a Leicester fan, but I think for people that aren't Leicester fans that are more neutral, I think most of them would agree they're gonna stay up.
Yeah, I mean, you look at even the 5 home fixtures: Bournemouth, Wolves, Everton, Liverpool with their away record, West Ham with their away record. You've got to think there's points in there. But if they don't do well between now and going to Fulham in 35, when they've got Liverpool and Newcastle after that, they'll start shitting themselves if they don't get themselves out of trouble.
That's the thing. That's what I was saying earlier about how good this relegation battle might be for a neutral. That, Southampton are sitting on 23, Palace are in 12th on 30. Like, and given that Leicester and Bournemouth are on 25 and 27, any of them could get pulled in. So if in the next few weeks, like the next kind of 2 to 3 game weeks or whatever, it's still that close, well, it's a bit like what I was saying earlier about Arsenal pressure building when they're getting close to the title. Pressure will build on these teams. It's just whether or not, like someone like Maddison, for example, I'm sure he doesn't want to get relegated. I'm not saying he does, but they go down, he's going to a different Premier League club. But it might not be the case for everyone else. So you'd hope they would play not wanting to get relegated, but there's a lot of teams there. So yeah, I agree with you. I think if it goes too much longer and they're still close to that bottom 3, anything can happen at that point. So I wouldn't completely rule it out.
I think Palace is the only ones from the bottom 9. I think Palace absolutely will be fine. Their fixtures are even better than Leicester's. I cannot see them not getting 7-8 points is probably all they're going to need. Leicester need a little bit more than that, maybe. Is Iheanacho definitely the right sell for me, do you think? Do any debate on that? Like going Toney instead, then I can go Maddison to Salah.
Yeah.
But then I've still got Iheanacho lingering for weeks.
I feel like he's a sell. It's a horrible situation because nobody wants to sell a player before Bournemouth at home. I remember doing one of my videos before 29. I basically said, if there's a forward you want to bring in that you're going to keep for the next 4 to 6 weeks, then yeah, take a -4 to sell Iheanacho. But if you're not sure about it, I would just hold him and hope he starts once. And given he hasn't started any of the last 3, I think it is now, there's just no way we can. From everything we've seen, basically, we have to assume he's probably not going to start against Bournemouth. Now, maybe the Leicester fans know different, but it could be Vardy again, could be Daka. We just don't know. So I feel like if there's a good player you can bring in instead, you've probably got to sell. You don't want him for Man City away anyway, right?
Nah, well, exactly that as well. So the thing is, if I do go Toney to Haaland, okay, yes, if everything goes well, I could bench Iheanacho at Man City because I've got the 5 in midfield. But it's not ideal. It's going to go at some point, isn't it? And once I've gone the Haaland move, what forward then am I going to? Am I waiting for a good Isak fixture? Am I waiting for Darwin Núñez's double? Could sit there for a while, completely depreciating value. I think, now on the head, as you said, it's 3 games now. He hasn't started. Enough. It's been a bit unfortunate. I think the decision to keep him for the double was probably the right decision. I could have easily done that -4 to Havertz and been bad. I could have done it for Isak and been slightly ahead, but no regret on the decision. Maddison?
Sorry, really quickly on Iheanacho. What do you think happens? You start 6 in a row. You only get a minute against Brentford. Obviously, I think Rodgers was still in charge for the Palace game, I think.
Yeah, it was his last game.
Yeah. And so I thought, okay, he's gone now. Maybe whoever's taken over next might play him. But then he gets 0 minutes. I just don't know what happens with him. Like, I feel like everyone that watches him thinks that's a really good player that could go and start for a lot of other teams in the league. And he plays 6 in a row, and then just gets benched through. I just don't understand what happens.
After he got the goal against Tottenham in game week 23, which I had the blessing of seeing right in front of me at the King Power, we mentioned this stat that he's I think it was players who played over 100 Premier League games or so. He had the 10th best goals per minute ratio in Premier League history.
Yeah, he's good. I mean, to be fair, after that goal against Spurs, he did blank 4 games in a row, but 3 of them were against United, Arsenal, and Chelsea. And I know in that Southampton game, he was very unlucky not to return, him and Maddison.
Tell me about it. I had both of them, Andy.
Yeah, I can't remember the other 3 games, but I just remember that Southampton game, he should have scored. So, yeah, I don't know. I just feel like they get relegated, he goes to another Premier League team and starts every week. I'm not saying he can go and be a star at every team in the league, but there's a lot of teams that could probably use him.
I can't consider selling Maddison this week, can I? No.
If he's fit, no, not for Bournemouth. Don't see why you do that. Despite, I mean, I think I can't remember who told me. Maybe it was Luke. I think since the World Cup, possibly he's not shooting that much and not in the box. He's very much, assist threat there. But I just don't think there's any need to take him out before Bournemouth at home if he's fit. That I can't even think of any other player that's like a midfielder that would even be like feel like they were essential this week to bring in instead, to be honest, unless you wanted to take a punt on Grealish or someone like that. But
this is where I got badly done on the eye test, right? Because I obviously was at the King Power and watched Maddison and Iheanacho and Harvey Barnes, in fairness, all completely destroy us. They beat us 4-1 and went, they're going to be absolutely fine. They played against yourselves and they started really well. If
they should have scored in that game.
Yeah, it should have been a couple up in the first 20 minutes or so. All right, they didn't score against you. Fine. Didn't score against Arsenal. I'm going, they're unlucky at United. Fine. Arsenal's the best team in the league at the moment. I'm going in for them. And actually, you look back at Maddison's returns since the World Cup, there's not a lot there at all. I mean, it's 4 attacking returns.
Yeah, I do think I haven't looked at you mentioned Nitas. I've not looked at his individual numbers for those matches, like in terms of expected goals, expected assists. But over the season, his numbers are pretty good. Like he's one of those players like Fernandes where they're more skewed to getting an assist than a goal. But also he's one of those players that you pick up an assist, you probably get a couple of bonus for him, right, as well. So
I mean, the amount of misses from him, the 3 Iheanacho ones at Southampton, a Marty from a yard out against Chelsea, Harry Souttar on Tuesday night from like 3 yards out as well. All would have been Maddison assists.
Yeah, I think owners have got a little bit unlucky. And I think you kind of have to, it's hard, but you've got to try and forget that it's been really bad the last few weeks. And Bournemouth at home, like I know I said get rid of Iheanacho, that's completely different, right? The guy hasn't started for 3 games. There's nothing to say that's going to change. Maddison will absolutely start if he's fit. We know that. So I think you've got to keep him for that game.
But then once I've gone Iheanacho to Haaland, I can't go Maddison that week when Leicester play City to Salah.
Okay. So how can you do that? You've got to sell Toney first and keep Iheanacho.
Well, there'll be something else will have to go.
Yeah.
No, I think I've got to deal with the first one in front of my face, and that's probably just go Iheanacho to Haaland.
Yeah.
And then work out what I need to do the following week. Because that once I've done that as well, that allows me to bench Maddison at Man City if need be, because I'll have an 8-strong attack, basically. It would mean playing the double Brighton attack at Chelsea, but yeah, that's be it. Yeah. Villa, anything of interest for you other than Watkins?
I mean, under difference, okay, let's just say I'm not free hitting in 32 and I've got Luke Shaw sat there injured. Well, they've got 3 home games in the next 4. Forest, Newcastle, Fulham without Mitrovic. They play in 32. Not a great game against Brentford away. Who knows? Maybe Toney will be suspended by that point. I don't mind a defender, to be honest, for Villa. I got to say, I think Adam Hopcroft, he tweeted about Villa before the double, and I said, surely there's no one else you'd want apart from Watkins. And then since then, Mings has continually got points, even got 8 against Chelsea. So, yeah, I quite like a cheap defender for those games, to be honest. I think Moreno would probably be the ideal choice, and he has started, I'm just looking at last 5 games. I guess it's just always that worry that Luca Dean might start the odd one. So I would probably play it safe with Mings, but obviously Moreno is a little bit more interesting. But yeah, not for me because it just doesn't work into my team. But without a free hit in 32, you could look at it.
Yeah, I think Moreno's the one you'd really like to buy now with those starts, but I don't think we need to take the risk. And one of the things with Mings for quite a while was the concern about Carlos coming back in, who's obviously had been injured nearly all season. But I think if or when that happens, it's for Konsa. It's not for Tyrone Mings. He's been playing really. He was great at Stamford Bridge last week, actually. Right. I think that will do us for Leicester Villa. Did you watch Chelsea Liverpool Tuesday night, Andy?
Yeah, I did. I actually think it was maybe worse than Spurs Everton. I don't know. It's just didn't really enjoy it at all. I mean,
I beg to differ.
yeah, well, yeah, I guess you would. It was all right. I think actually maybe it was similar to how you summed up Everton Spurs. There were spells of that game that were all right, mostly from Chelsea, but the quality in that last bit of actually trying to score the goal was just not there. Havertz just. I don't want to always go straight to confidence whenever a player doesn't score because sometimes you just get unlucky, but it just doesn't look like he should be the one playing as the number 9 at all. There needs to be someone else there, and maybe he plays off them. I don't know. João Felix, I don't think I put this in my video the other day, and I'm not saying he did it intentionally, but in that game specifically, because I think he's been great in general, he reminded me of that kid at school that's way better than everyone else, that just holds onto the ball for too long and doesn't release it. And he kept doing that. Like that final pass just wasn't there from him. And even like Kovacic, he smashed it over the bar, and he probably should have passed to Havertz or Reece James, who were in a lot more space. So final decisions and just general quality of chances being taken, just it was. I got to be honest, I don't even own any Chelsea attackers, and I was getting frustrated. I can't imagine what the fans feel. I was like, how are you not scoring here? They got so many chances.
It didn't help that the two biggest and best ones they had fell to Mateo Kovacic, who's a player I really, really like, but he's not
maybe
a
not
great
for
finisher.
scoring goals. Yeah,
yeah. And with Havertz, it's absolutely a good footballer in there, but I don't feel like he enjoys the pressure of people thinking he's the man or he's going to be the main goal scorer in the team. It's almost like he ghosts into positions quite well, where when he's at the hub at the front, doesn't feel quite right. I'd love to see him as a 10 in a 4-2-3-1 if he had a couple of flying wingers and like a Lukaku in front of him and see how it would look actually. Chelsea did change system. They played 5 in midfield, basically, if you include the 2 wing backs. And it was great to see N'Golo Kante back. It was the highlight of the game for me. It was so good. I'd have given him man of the match personally. It was brilliant considering it was first start for 6 months. There is this weird stat going around that Chelsea haven't lost with Kante this season. It's only been about 3 or 4 games. Interestingly, they haven't won with him either. They've all been draws.
Oh, really?
when he started, yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think I would have maybe made Fofana man of the match, but if I did that, Kante would have been very, very close behind. They were both excellent, I thought.
Interestingly, he'll make a big difference to them as well, Wesley Fofana. I think we should be cautious, as I've been saying for a number of weeks, about the Brighton game because they've got Real Madrid 3 days before and 3 days after. But actually, we assume, I don't know if it's been confirmed, Andy, but Frank Lampard, I guess, is in charge for the weekend. They'll go strong. He'll certainly favour Fofana and Kante. The one who might get a look back in straight away, I guess, maybe is Mason Mount.
Yeah, and maybe a lot of people. Yeah, so I don't think it's been. Oh, it might have just been officially confirmed just there. I think people are tweeting about it, but it's going to happen anyway. Yeah, I think the other one is that people have been talking about is maybe Mendy coming back into goal. Because there was a tweet, sorry, not a tweet, like a comment I saw from Kepa talking after Lampard went and Tuchel came in about how it was nice to have tactics. And I don't know exactly what he said because I didn't look at the full article, but basically he was saying things are better under Tuchel than they were under Lampard. And he didn't really favour him at the time. So I do wonder whether Kepa might drop out. That might be a slight worry.
That's definitely official with Lampard. He's already done an interview previewing the game at Wolves, actually. Yeah, it's confirmed as caretaker manager until the end of the season. Yeah, if you're a Kepa owner like I am, you're a bit nervous. Although I'd say you're probably more nervous if you've got a Danny Ward sitting in the backup. That's like, oh, I've got to fix a problem. I've got Kepa and Raya. That's what you've got as well, isn't it, Andy?
Yeah.
Are you playing?
I'm playing Kepa. So I think I was a little bit torn, but I just think Newcastle are a much better attack than Wolves. And so even though it's an away game, I'm going for Kepa. Yeah, that's it really. I think for our position, because there's no bench boost now to play, obviously it would be annoying if Kepa got dropped because there's some good single game week fixtures. I think they've got to play Forest at some point in a week where I might want to play him. But if he gets dropped, you've got to play in keeper. It's not the end of the world. The worst positions, like you said, when you've got a second goalkeeper that's also a worry. But we'll see what Lampard does. He might just play him. He might not change things too much and just.
My instinct is that Kepa probably does play this weekend, but it might change afterwards.
That would be way worse for someone like me that wants to make a goalkeeper transfer in 31. Because I was going to sell Raya. So if Kepa plays, but I'm still worried about it, then there's a decision to be made there.
Ask yourself this: if you got stuck with one for 34 and you couldn't get to a doubler, would you rather have Kepa away to Arsenal or Raya at home to Forest?
Yeah, definitely Ryan. To be honest, I'm gonna if I make a goalkeeper switch, it's going to be Edison anyway, so I'm going to play him that week. So for me personally, it doesn't make a difference. But you're right, yeah, Raya would be.
I would say in that case for you then, Andy, because Chelsea have obviously got a double at the end, but then City will have as well.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Kepa's of no use to you, and their double will be the two Manchester clubs away. So you wouldn't pick him over Edison with his two.
So it's only some of the single games. I think it's 35 and 36. Chelsea have got Bournemouth away, Forest at home, and Man City have got Leeds at home. Which, to be fair, would be fine. Yeah, so it'd be fine. It'd be fine. It's a very minimal concern for me, basically.
I think in your case though, it might be the right call to move Kepa. You've got Chilwell as well, haven't you?
Yeah.
I'd probably lose Kepa. I think from that. Yes, I will probably start Kepa as well, I should imagine. Certainly not looking for new investment in Chelsea, though, despite the change of manager. The next few after Wolves, you've got Brighton at home blank, Brentford at home blank, Arsenal away. It's probably, if for those not free hitting, it'd probably be near on worse for the next 5 or so, considering they haven't even got a fixture in 32.
Yeah, my general plan is just to keep Chilwell until 33, 34, and then he goes for a double game week player because they're doubling 37 so bad. I'm not worried about keeping him for that.
Yeah, the only difference I thought with that one, though, is Chilwell could be very good in 35, 36.
True.
Exactly what you said, which is kind of the opposite. Bench him in 34 away to Arsenal, play him in the others.
I think if Chelsea, which to be honest, I'd say odds on going to happen. If they go out to Real Madrid, then it gets a bit of a different conversation. If they happen to get through, then I think I'd be much happier to sell Chilwell. But you're right, I wouldn't want to necessarily get rid of. Presumably, Lampard's going to continue with wing backs. I wouldn't want to necessarily not have James or Chilwell for those two fixtures. So I think I'm going to try and it's one of those moves. I think I'll try and delay as late as possible. Basically,
that I think now, if you can put Thiago Silva back in there, essentially, with that midfield 5, is better, much firmer as well. And either way, whether it's 3-4-3 or 3-5, so I think we've seen Chilwell in both games look very offensive in both. What did you think when you heard the leaks of that Liverpool team on Tuesday?
Yeah, I wasn't quite sure what was. I kind of get it, right? It's a quick turnaround, mate. Like you said earlier, maybe that's why he's missed out, etc. But that's a lot of changes. I guess, yeah. Maybe he was just hoping that he could get through that, get a result. I guess they did get a draw, and then be fully ready for the home game where you got to go and play in front of your own, your home crowd against Arsenal. Maybe that's the only thing I can think of.
I think it was probably what Klopp tends to do, and we've spoken about this, particularly when doubles come up near the end of the season as well. Essentially, his medical team will often end up basically picking the team. Because they'll say he has a traffic light system where they're in the red zone or in the orange zone. And if you've got a lot of games together, if the physios or whomever tell him this player's at real risk here, he just won't pick them. He won't take a chance with them. And considering they were chasing shadows against City in the second half, City had 75% of the ball in that second half, didn't they? Then there's every chance the recovery was quite bad. I don't think it had anything to do with Arsenal. It's probably he's been told all these players are at risk of injury if you play them. Although there is one that I think might stick for the weekend, and I think it might prick some interest for those who own Gabriel Martinelli. I don't think Trent will play.
Yeah, I knew that was going to be the one you said. As soon as you started saying, yeah, it's possible because obviously Gomez. I mean, there have been games this season where Gomez has not looked good whatsoever, but as a defender, you definitely put him in ahead of Trent. So you might be right. His
problem's concentration, which is also a Trent problem.
Yeah, it would be a worry. And I don't know about you, but Trent is one of the players I've got earmarked for 34. So if he starts missing more than... Because I think you miss one game, you just put it down to a bit of rotation, bit of a rest, like you said. You start missing more, then that's a major concern. So I don't... What am I trying to say? I wouldn't... Yeah, I think you could be right. It's essentially what I'm trying to say. There's a possibility for that to happen.
I think Trent Robertson, not on radar for me, 34. I'd probably more interested from a value perspective, Alisson.
Yeah.
Or Konate. he's dirt cheap. And
Yeah.
the beauty of that is you don't have to mess about with the budget of or the structure of the rest of your squad. If you bring in a Kanate in for a Botman, as an example, you're not massively changing the structure of your team. If you make that sort of move to a Trent, you're thumping things about. But it sounds like that's part of your plan.
Yeah, I mean, things might change by 34. That was the rough plan. The only thing I would say on Robertson, obviously they have got a straight replacement there in Simicast, but I thought Simicast was one of the worst. Maybe that's a bit harsh. I didn't think he was very good against Chelsea. I think there was a couple of times he gave the ball away, a couple of times where he just felt like he was out of position, to where Chelsea got chances where I don't think they would have necessarily had them if Robertson was playing. So, but I mean, we know that that's a position Klopp can swap. So I wouldn't be massively confident going forward that he plays every game. But I just think if Klopp saw the same game that I think I saw, I didn't think Simicast was great. But you're right about Kanate. He's only 4.8, and he started, what is it now, 5 in a row? That's pretty good, yeah. That's a Chilwell swap without any issues, without any money having to be found.
Yeah, I think part of my thinking is possibly him or Aki. It'd probably end up being one or the other. I suspect that might end up being the Manchester City player. How many points are Liverpool off the top four? Do you know, Andy?
I did have the table. I can get it up very quickly.
Go on, be the man.
So they are on 43 and Man United are on 53. So they're 10 points off and they've played the same amount of games as United and Newcastle. So it's only really Spurs that have played more.
So chances are on Sunday, with respect to Everton, it's 13 points.
Hopefully, yeah.
Liverpool then need to beat Arsenal, don't they?
Yeah, I actually thought a few weeks ago Liverpool were going to do it, but I think they've just, Man City, fair enough, but losing to Bournemouth and not getting anything against Chelsea, they've made it very difficult for themselves. There's been no momentum since that Man United game.
How many points did you say they're on?
43.
Yeah, probably have got to win a minimum 8 of what's left, probably. Which they, with the fixtures they've got, they're capable of doing, by the way.
Yeah. But I like Newcastle just don't look like letting up anytime soon. And I think
agreed.
And from looking at, holding Botman and Trippier and originally thinking about Isak, part of that is not just because of the extra double. They've also got pretty good fixtures for the rest of the season. They've still got to play Arsenal and Chelsea away and Brighton, of course. But other than that, there's not a huge amount of issues there for Newcastle. So I think very tough for Liverpool now to get top 4. They basically got nothing really to play. Obviously, they've got top 4 to play.
I wouldn't rule them out yet. And the fact there's 2 teams they're trying to chase rather than just one.
True, yeah.
Means if either Newcastle or Manchester United have a dip. But yeah, I mean, I completely agree with you. But let's say, Liverpool win Sunday, then beat Leeds, Forest, and I don't know, Newcastle draw twice, Brentford and Villa. Then suddenly it becomes Newcastle will feel it on the back of their necks that they're coming, for example. Yeah, absolutely.
I think the one thing for Liverpool is no matter what the defence does, because I mean, even if Trent comes back in, it's not like you think that defence gets any more secure, but they have still got so many good attackers. You always expect them to, get something in terms of goals, and therefore, obviously, you got a chance of getting some results. So I wouldn't completely rule them out, but I'm definitely a lot less confident about them getting top 4 than I would have been, 1 or 2 weeks ago, I'd say.
Yeah, I think even just picking that team as well gave a message out. It may well have been under Vice, but it made you feel like how badly do you want it? It's at risk stage now. You need to be, and Chelsea were vulnerable, but Chelsea were a better side throughout the game. Just one final point on Liverpool, because a lot of people will be planning to bring Liverpool assets into our team. I don't think they'd give up on the season. The fixtures are good enough that they might even chill out and do really well for the rest of the season. But it might be that Klopp starts looking at things for next season in terms of system changes, where get that right for game week 1 next year, where people like Harvey Elliott are definitely playing every game, maybe more Gakpo, reintegration of Luis Diaz as a player he's very close, and he might be an interesting wild card pick for the rest of the season. But let's finish with these 2 games from last night, Andy. Your boys beat Brentford 1-0. Sounds like it was probably deserved. We spoke about Rashford in quite a bit of detail and Luke Shaw towards the start of the show, and Bruno Fernandes as well. Where do you prefer Rashford to play? I'm interested to ask. Is it definitely through the middle for you?
Yeah, no, actually, it's funny you asked that, because earlier on when I said, he's playing forward, that's great for FPL, but actually I don't think that is his best position. I actually think he struggled a little bit there early on in the season. I think he's got better there, but it probably is on the left. But right now, if you're asking me, do I want Rashford on the left and Weghorst through the middle, or Rashford up top and bring Sancho or someone like that in instead, I guess the second option is probably a bit better. And I don't want to like completely, say bad things about Weghorst, because I don't think he came in and we thought he was going to be this brilliant player, and he's done pretty well for the most part. But I think that's the thing right now. If Martial can stay fit, you want Rashford on the left. But the problem is Martial can never, ever stay fit. So I think Rashford up front is a fairly good solution to, a bit of a problem that Ten Hag has, essentially.
That also gets Sancho and Anthony in the team, doesn't it?
Yeah. Although, I don't know, Sancho is just... I'm starting to wonder whether he's ever going to produce. I think there's been glimpses at times. I think there's been moments when he's looked okay. To me, it almost feels a bit like Paul Pogba, in that no manager seems to be able to know exactly where he's supposed to play and how they get the best out of him, even Ten Hag. And so it'd be interesting to see. Obviously, he's still quite, actually, I don't want to get into a Jesse Lingard situation here. He's still fairly young, is what I want to say. What is he? He's 23. So it's not like he's 18, 19 anymore. So I do worry about him a little bit, but I do think it would be good in general for Man United to have him on the pitch more often than not. Just try and get him producing something.
Yeah, I think we should also accept that many players, I think we're seeing it like with Jack Grealish now, when you're going into a big club, quite often it will take till year 2. And obviously Sancho, because of off-the-field stuff, has obviously had his season extremely interrupted. So it might be for him, it's the 3rd year. We should also consider, though, as I keep repeating on many shows, is that maybe now we talk about peaks at like 27, 28. You think of examples like Dele Alli and start asking if peaks are now happening at 21 for players. And he may be another one who's gone through that peak. If Shaw's out, Andy, for a long period, are you considering going to another United player defensively further down the line? Would that be your plan? Because I guess De Gea could fix your goalkeeping issue as well.
Yeah, I guess that is the rough dilemma. It's Ederson plus Shaw, or possibly a Man City defender plus De Gea. But I'd really need to know if Shaw was definitely out. If we get word that he is, then I guess the good thing about the Man United defenders is they're quite a bit cheaper than the Man City ones. I don't know if that money would make a difference to most people, but it's worth considering. So if Shaw's out for a while, Malacia is very likely to just play every game. And he's only 4.3, I think.
Did he play Dallo or Wan-Bissaka on that side?
He could do.
Martinez at left back with Lindelof at centre back?
I don't think... I mean, it could happen. I don't think it would. I don't think Martinez would move. But possibly Dallo or Wan-Bissaka could play left back. But I don't think that... I can't see that happening very often. I think Malacia would play the majority of games. I don't think he's worse than Shaw, of course, right? He is the backup, but I think he's good enough to play the majority of the remaining games.
So let's put it a different way then. So let's say the news was Luke Shaw's got a really bad tear of his hamstring. He's out for 3 months. Do you just go to Malacia then?
I'm trying. Yeah, possibly. I haven't really thought about it because I'm assuming that Shaw is definitely going to be back. But yeah, I mean, he's only 4.2 million, so that might solve some problems in the future. I guess he's one of those players where, like, when you've asked me the question there, do I think someone else could play? I've kind of hesitated a bit, which tells me I don't think he's necessarily 100% nailed. But I feel like if we've got, I can't remember how many games it is left now. It's probably 9 or 10. Could he start 8 or 9 of them if there was 10 left? Probably.
And maybe good fixtures on the whole, right?
Yeah, maybe. And there's a chance he would just start all 10 as well. Because I don't think that Dallo, for example, he was absolutely first choice for a while. Now Wan-Bissaka has started playing a bit better. I don't even know if he's playing so well that he'd want him on the left. I think Malacia would just play for the most part.
It's interesting. I'm sure every year there's a defender that crops up who's like 4.2, hasn't been considered for the first 32 game weeks of the season, and he ends up in everyone's team at the end of the season. And I couldn't possibly tell you right now who that's going to be, but Andy, that's why you're the king of YouTube. Maybe you just told everyone, mate. Brentford assets, we spoke about Toney quite a bit. Rico Henry might end up sitting for me for a little while. It's just not a big problem, regular substitute. I don't even mind possibly playing him in that big double in 34 because Forest at home. So I'm saying if I end up with Raya, Henry and Toney for that week, okay. Might take that on. I'm sure they'll get me 6 points if that's the case, but if I'm struggling to get to doublers, that's part of what I'm thinking. Can I be competitive in a different way to those who say wildcard 33 or manage to build better than me because they avoid things like Luke Shaw getting injured, for example?
Yeah,
Um,
I think with Brentford now, it's if you've got things change basically because the bench boost is out of the way now. So you've kept that Brentford defender all the way through. There's now no rush to get rid of him at all. So I think you can probably hold on to him for the most part. Like they're reliable. They're going to start. I guess from 35 onwards, the fixtures for Brentford are pretty bad. So there's not really any games there you necessarily want to play them in. But for now, there's no rush. The only player that I would consider possibly buying at some point for some people, again, if you're talking about a lack of forwards, is if Toney does get suspended or banned at some point. Mbommo would then suddenly have his minutes probably increase a little bit, maybe. He'd definitely be still nailed on like he already is. But also, he'd probably take penalties as well.
yeah.
And he's less than 6 million. So he could be a potential option. Again, game week 34. Like I know for me, unless I go for Vinicius, there ain't going to be any money for someone like Darwin Nunez in my team. It's going to have to be someone cheap. So Nottingham Forest at home from Mbommo if Tony's suspended, possibly.
Yeah, well said. I don't think we'll be looking at West Ham assets anytime soon, despite their own double in game week 34. There will be a few people who've gambled in on Ings, Ben Rama, Bowen. Is that oh my God, bin?
I mean, I guess with someone like Bowen, you at least know. I'm just going to double check before I say he did start last night. Yeah, he did. I watched the game. Like he always plays. So I guess he's not so much of a worry. But Ings now is a bit of a worry. I was presumably he's going to start the next game unless he's unfit, but I don't think he is.
Another one Sunday, Wednesday, Saturday, right?
Yeah,
So it's
exactly.
probably accumulation of games.
He got 27 minutes last night, so he should be fine. The only time I'm really eyeing them up, possibly, is a punt on free hit 32 for Bournemouth away. Outside of that, I think they can probably be mostly ignored.
Yeah, I think I might be looking for a few punts for that Bournemouth West Ham game as well. Neto, Solanke, Billing, considering West Ham's away record.
Well,
six points away from home.
Absolutely pointless, but I've already looked at what a team might look like. And I think I had Maddison and Zaha in at one point. So if Zaha's not fit, that could be a Bowen spot. You never know.
It could be a Billing spot.
It could be a Billing spot as well, yeah.
I saw you, by the way, just while you mention it. You intending to have Harry Kane on that free hit?
Originally I was, but actually I don't know now. I think from what I've looked at, forwards are probably the hardest thing to pick that week. And maybe that punt in midfield. I know it's Newcastle away, but I just like Harry Kane just always feels like a sure thing. I know Newcastle playing so well, better team than Spurs, etc. But I think if let's say Tony's suspended, the forward options really are probably Kane, not Tony, Watkins away to Brentford, Jesus, but I'd probably go Saka in a midfielder instead. Like there's a lack of forwards that are obvious that week.
I'll give you one.
Go on.
Alexander Isak.
You're going to say that. Yeah, possibly.
Mate, they play with more intensity than any other team in the league, and we probably play with less intensity than any other team in the league. So, yeah, I noticed that you set the screenshot a couple of weeks ago and had Kane in it, and I thought, I'm not sure you're going to want that. It'd be an interesting debate when we get there.
Yeah, I think at the time I kind of said like 6 spots are locked in with triple Arsenal, triple Liverpool, like most people would do, and another spot is locked in with Kane. All I'll say now is that spot is probably not locked in, but I still think I would probably end up going with him. One thing for sure, money's quite tight on free hit 32, I've noticed. So there will be...
He'll make a difference, won't he?
Exactly, yeah. It might be the difference maker.
Talking of which, Newcastle assets, very good again. They've had obviously an impressive week. I'm sure you probably watched the game on Sunday as well. They're definitely going to finish top 4 here. Well, the two of you are, aren't they?
If they keep playing like this, then yeah, it almost feels like kind of pressure's off for them a little bit. Like they're playing like they're not feeling it. They're just enjoying it. It's going really well. I know Callum Wilson kind of his interview last night was, asked about Champions League, and he kind of said, "Oh, next match." But then he said, "Of course, yeah, I'd love it." And they just don't feel like. Maybe it's because no one expected it at the start of the season. Like they expected them to be better, but not necessarily top 4. They just feel like they're playing with the pressure off, and they're just brilliant.
They've kicked on. I think really importantly as well, when I look at them having put in a huge amount of energy against yourselves on Sunday, to then still have that energy towards the end of the game last night's important. Because one of the things I'd said prior to the World Cup is the intensity that they're putting in we don't know when we get to sort of April if they'll still be able to do it. They might hit a fatigue wall. They haven't. And that's despite having that kind of period where they kept having a number of draws in consecutive weeks. Actually, they've found themselves again. They've had a few players come back to fitness, such as Isak, St. Maximin, the introduction of Gordon occasionally. Jacob Murphy's been playing really well for him. Was he 4.1 or something, Andy?
Something like that, yeah. He's. I've actually got a Newcastle team here. He is, 4.1.
I mean, I'm not saying go and buy or anything, but actually he's playing so well at the moment that he's probably going to stay in this team at the moment rather than shoehorn Wilson and St. Maximin in together. The back five, and I include the goalkeeper as part of that, play every game. So they've got that consistent, solid base. And yes, there's been a little bit recently of conceding the odd silly goal like Pope did to Zuma last night. But yeah, they've been so impressive. And I think they could finish third from here. I think they're more likely to finish third than fifth.
Yeah, not a bad shout. Hopefully not, but yeah. I think it really helps having Bruno Guimaraes there, who I think could probably get into every other team in the league, probably.
Don't think it's a probably, Andy.
Yeah, so that definitely helps. But I think also they've got a little bit of squad depth there as well. So they like Callum Wilson, we know, is never someone that's going to play. He's not going to do a Harry Kane where he's not going to play 30 plus games every season. So being able to rest him every now and again, keep him even hungry maybe, then get him back in like last night. I heard him say in the interview that, he'd been out for a couple of games. He had to show and stamp his mark on that game. And obviously he got a little bit lucky with the second goal in particular, but he's done himself no harm in starting the next one now. So I think being able to not have to play him 90 minutes every single week is probably helping. And the same with Isak. Like if he starts and they've got the game won, you bring him off and you rest him up. So they've got a little bit of, like I said, squad depth there, which I think is also helping. And it's good quality depth as well. They're not like scraping the barrel for replacements.
You're right. There's another name to consider up front for 32. Play Wilson and Isak. Just play them both, mate. One will come off the bench and score. I think, in all seriousness, Isak, I think will be back in the team at the weekend.
Yeah, that I do think I probably tilted a little bit on him last night. Well, that's it now. You just can't consider him. But I guess if he's straight back in and he also plays, considering I'm not looking at anyone until 32, if he plays against Villa as well, then your theory probably is correct. It's just a quick turnaround.
I must remember, he's obviously had a couple of setbacks as well. So
yeah.
I think it's probably more like I said, if you're looking to think, right, I want to get Newcastle players because I know they've got a double further down the line. If you're adamant you need that 2 starts, that looks less assured, as particularly if Wilson's there. We might get there though, and Wilson's not fit. Therefore, he probably starts twice. What a great player to be able to rotate and bring in. I like Willock was great against you, right? And they left him out last night. Willock will be back in the team, I should imagine, at the weekend.
And it goes back to what you were saying earlier about that lack of forwards. And actually, no, do you know what? Ignore that.
Go on, say it.
No, I was about to say, even if Wilson and Isak start one and play in the other one, that's like what, maybe 90 to 120 minutes. But then I remembered the doubles in 36, not 34. So just ignore me completely. I'm just an idiot.
Andy, I really enjoyed that. You got time for a couple of questions? Because we've had more in than normal because you're here. So let's see if we can find a couple of good ones for you. Jack says, Andy, how do you decide when it's worth sharing team news?
I will if it's before a deadline, I will always share it if it's FPL relevant and if I can be at least somewhat sure it's legit. I get messages every now and again from people I just don't even share. I've actually had one before where they gave me team news. It just looked like a random account and they were spot on and it was something you wouldn't be able to guess. And I went back to him afterwards and said, I wish I'd seen this because it involved a player that I had. But I don't like saying every single piece of news I get. I have to be somewhat sure it's legit before I say it.
We've covered most of the FPL stuff, I think, throughout the pod. Benny Blanco says, were you intimidated doing this podcast, considering how good he was on Monday's show?
I'm always intimidated coming on here. Scary place.
Scott Schrager wants to know, Andy, do you remember your late night stream when you were feeling no pain and playing music and asking Planet FPL to bring you on their pod?
Yeah, if anyone remembers that stream, they've been watching for a long time.
I remember it.
Yeah, I will. That will never happen again. Let's just say that because
didn't you have to delete it?
Well, I said that at the time. The thing is, I was hammered, but I wasn't hammered enough to know that I should lead that stream up. So I deleted it straight away as soon as I stopped. But I mean, there's a few reasons I can't do it now. One, there's just way more subscribers now, so too many people would see it. But also, this day and age, everything gets clipped so quickly; it'd be everywhere, like within FPL. And I just, oh my god, it must have been so embarrassing.
It was great, mate. It was superb. Go on, one FPL one I've seen here. Then we can do quickly. Jay Aravind, 2-week punts for FPL, so literally just for 30 and 31.
Oh, that's a good question that I feel like I should have thought about.
I'll throw a name in really quickly. Manor Solomon.
Yeah. Yeah. Fulham, what is it? West Ham at home and
Everton away.
Yeah, like that. I guess going back from what we said earlier, Leeds maybe, Palace at home, Liverpool at home, 2 home games in a row.
Sinistera.
Yeah, someone like that.
I'd find him difficult to pick over Grealish or Gundogan if you could get up there, though.
That's the thing. Like, they're hard to make a real case for. I'm talking proper punts now that you maybe are just getting for the sake of it. But yeah, I guess Grealish. Yeah, the thing is, everyone's going to talk about Grealish. Not many people are actually going to bring him in. He will still be a massive differential this week and next, I would say.
Yeah, I'll surprise you. Pedro Porro.
Pedro Porro, Matt. After everything you've just said about Spurs,
well, it's 2 home games, isn't it?
Yeah.
And
I guess one of them is
if
Bournemouth,
you know you're definitely getting rid, then fine.
Yeah, Son.
No.
You got nearly. I forgot how much he is. He's like nearly 12 million.
I'd rather get Salah for Arsenal.
Yeah, fair enough.
Without a doubt. So no, Porro is cheap enough. Might work for a budget. Stick him in for Luke Shaw for a couple of weeks, go back or something. Is not terrible. Yeah, Manor Solomon. Why not?
Yeah, I mean, if we're talking like proper punch, you got someone like Buendia, Nottingham Forest at home, Newcastle at home, 2 home games, possibly.
Bailey.
Yeah.
Played very high and wide last night, despite Buendia basically played to the left, and the system was a little bit different. Bailey played really high and kept pulling out to the right, actually. He's certainly cheap enough that you'd be able to afford. Andy, brilliant. Really enjoyed that, mate. Thank you so much for your time. Share your socials, promo your stuff, mate. Yeah,
just Let's Talk FPL on YouTube, and just go and search that on Twitter. You'll find the same thing. I'm on other platforms, but I never use them. Twitter and YouTube.
It's your enthusiasm that's got you all these subscribers, mate. You know that.
I know, yeah. I used to when I used to work at EA, they always wonder how I was so laid back. Just take it as it comes,
I think it's the fact that you're so personable and relatable, mate, is what's made you part of the success that you are, mate. Thank you so much, my friend. Clash of correspondence tomorrow. Dara Curran, Chris Stone, Fulham, West Ham. Yeah, they've both got doubles in 34, so we'll talk about them a bit, and we'll see if Chris is as worried as Suj is about West Ham. And Rob Pick will be doing the differential show with me on Patreon tomorrow. But just leaves me to say thank you so much to Andy. Good luck this week, everyone. Cue music, please, man, child.